The dust hung thick in the air like a curtain of gold, turning the Texas sky into a glowing haze. Cole Garrett stood on the wooden platform of Red Rock Creek Railway Station, his hat pulled low against the afternoon sun. He was 32, a man carved by the plains, broad-shouldered, quiet, and weathered by a lifetime of cattle drives. Years of sleeping under stars and waking to coyote cries had left his skin as tough as rawhide. But today, the steady cowboy felt a nervous dread he hadn't known in a long while. He wasn't waiting for a cattle shipment or a ranch hand. He was waiting for a wife, a woman he'd never met, procured through a drunken joke that had gone entirely too far. 6 months ago, goaded by his ranch hands, he'd written a letter to a matchmaker in San Francisco's Chinatown, a half-serious, half-mocking request for the most quiet, obedient, and docile woman she could find. He'd never expected a reply. But a reply came, and with it, a passenger ticket. The 3:15 train whistle echoed down the valley, and Cole's stomach turned. His joke was about to step off that train. Aunt Mildred back east had tried to find him a proper woman, someone ready to settle into a quiet life. But Cole, stubborn and solitary, had refused. Now, he was paying the price for his foolish pride. As the iron horse roared into view, black smoke curling above the cars, Cole straightened his back and adjusted his collar. The town stretched behind him, small and sun-bleached, one saloon, one church, a few shops. Civilization was just beginning to creep across the Texas plains, and he wanted to build his piece of it, though not like this. When the train screeched to a halt, passengers stepped down in a rush of steam and dust. Businessmen, families, saloon girls, but Cole's eyes found her immediately. She was the last to descend, moving with a quiet, deliberate grace that seemed to absorb the chaos around her. She was dressed in a traditional gown of deep crimson silk, the high collar fastened with a small jade clasp. Intricate silver embroidery of cherry blossoms traced the edges of her sleeves. The dress was elegant, out of place, and utterly captivating. Her black hair was woven into a neat, severe braid. She was exactly what he'd foolishly requested, small, seemingly fragile, and silent. She held a single, small wooden trunk. But then she looked up. Her eyes were not downcast or timid. They were the color of dark, polished mahogany, and in their depths burned a sharp, observant intelligence that catalogued everything, the dusty platform, the leering cowboys, and him. She scanned the crowd, and when her gaze landed on him, she didn't look away. Instead, her lips, unpainted and severe, remained perfectly still. Mr. Garrett, her voice was a soft murmur, yet it cut through the noise with surprising clarity. "Yes," he said quickly, tipping his hat. "I am My Lin," she stated, not as an introduction, but as a fact. She offered a slight bow instead of a hand. "I trust the arrangements are in place." "Yes." "Reverend Gable is waiting at the church," she nodded, her eye sweeping over the dusty street, the wooden storefronts, the men lounging near the saloon. Her expression was unreadable. "It is as I pictured," she murmured. "It's growing," Cole replied, a little too defensively. "Got a new school last year. Doctor just built an office with a surgery." Her lips twitched, the barest hint of a curve. How very modern, whether it was sarcasm or not, he couldn't tell. They loaded her lone trunk into his wagon. For a woman who had crossed an ocean and a continent, her belongings were shockingly few. My Lin watched everything, her sharp eyes seeming to see more than she let on. The ride to the church was quiet. She sat straight beside him, hands folded in her lap, her scent a faint mix of green tea and something clean, like soap. The wedding was small and quick. Reverend Gable read the vows in his trembling voice, while Mrs. Gable and the clerk stood as witnesses. My Lin spoke her vows clearly, her dark eyes never leaving Cole's face. When the moment came to seal them, she lifted her chin, calm and composed, as though she were appraising a business transaction. Her kiss was soft but shockingly firm, and Cole's pulse stumbled. After signing the register, Mrs. Gable handed My Lin a bundle of biscuits. "For the journey to your new home, dear," she said kindly, though her eyes looked sorry, like she was sending a delicate doll into the wilderness. They rode north as the sun sank low, painting the plains in gold and crimson. Mai Lin sat quietly, but Cole could sense her attention, could feel it in the air between them. "It's not much," he said as his ranch came into view, a sturdy log house with a barn and a corral. "But it's home. Built it myself, it is perfect," she said, surprising him with the genuine sentiment. "You built all this?" "With some help," he admitted, pulling up by the porch. When he helped her down, her body brushed his. That scent of tea mixed with sweat and wood smoke made his heart beat faster. For a moment, she held his gaze, and there was something in her eyes, strength, maybe even challenge. Then she stepped away. Inside, the cabin was simple. One main room with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table, and a small bedroom beyond. Cole had cleaned, but he saw now how bare it looked through her eyes. "I will prepare the evening meal," she said briskly, removing a small apron from her trunk. You know how to cook." "Of course," she replied, already inspecting his supplies. Her movements were precise, efficient, less like a pampered lady and more like someone who had worked hard her entire life. Cole watched, half confused, half impressed, as she moved about the small kitchen with a silent confidence. By the time he returned from tending the horses, the smell of rice, salted pork, and wild greens filled the cabin. They ate quietly, the crackle of the fire the only sound between them. When the dishes were done, they stood facing each other in the soft lamplight, the open bedroom door behind her. "I know this is sudden," Cole began awkwardly. "If you'd rather take some time to settle." Mai Lin stepped closer. "Mr. Garrett," she said softly, her English suddenly perfect, without a trace of an accent. "You have made some assumptions about the kind of woman you married." He blinked. I thought. You thought a quiet, obedient doll would answer an advertisement to marry a stranger and cross 1,000 miles into the frontier." Her eyes gleamed with a fire he hadn't seen before. "You wanted peace, cowboy, but I am afraid you just invited a hurricane." She reached up, unpinned the severe braid, and a cascade of dark, silken waves tumbled down over her shoulders. Cole forgot how to breathe. "The cowboy wanted a china doll," she whispered, her voice low and teasing, "but he got a dragon instead." And for the first time in his life, Cole Garrett realized he wasn't the one leading anymore. The wild frontier outside had found its match within his own walls. The morning sun poured through the cabin window, painting the wooden floor in warm gold. Cole Garrett was already awake, though he hadn't slept much. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, muscles sore in ways that made his chest tighten with memory. Beside him, Mai Lin slept deeply, her dark hair spilling across the pillow like ink, one arm flung carelessly over her head. Even asleep, she looked untamed, a woman who claimed space instead of shrinking from it. Cole rose quietly, pulling on his clothes and boots. He meant to tend the cattle before she woke, to get some distance to think, but when he reached for his hat, he heard her voice, soft and amused. "Running off already, cowboy?" He turned, startled. She was awake, eyes half-lidded with sleep, but her smirk was pure mischief. "Cattle don't wait for dreams," he muttered, fumbling for his vest. "Then I had better get dressed, too," she said, stretching like a cat before slipping from the bed. "Not necessary," he said quickly. "You should rest." "I will rest when I am dead," she replied lightly, already pulling practical garments from her trunk. When she stepped outside a short while later, Cole froze. Gone was the elegant woman from the train station, the one in the crimson silk dress. In her place stood someone dressed for work. Sturdy boots, a simple blouse, and practical dark trousers that allowed for free movement, her hair now in a long, practical braid down her back. "Where'd you get that outfit?" he asked. "I packed it," she said simply. "Did you think I came all this way just to embroider pillows?" Before he could reply, she was already heading toward the corral. "Which horse is mine?" she asked, her eyes scanning the small herd. "Yours," he blinked. "These aren't riding school ponies, Mai Lin. They're half-wild cow ponies. Need a firm hand." Her eyes flicked to a bay mare grazing near the fence. "That one," she said. "She has intelligent eyes." "That's Whiskey Girl," he said slowly. "Spirited. Throws most folks. We will understand each other just fine," Mai Lin said, already climbing through the rails. Cole started forward, but she was already moving among the horses, calm and confident. She spoke softly to the mare in a language he didn't recognize, hand out, movement sure. Within moments, she had Whiskey Girl's bridle in place, her tone firm but gentle. "Saddle," she said over her shoulder. Cole fetched one, half expecting her to give up. Instead, she saddled the horse cleanly, checking every strap like someone who knew her work. When she swung into the saddle, Whiskey Girl pranced, testing her rider. Mylin only smiled, settling deep in the seat. "Well," she called, "are you coming, or shall I check your herd myself?" He couldn't help it. He laughed, the sound bursting from him like a bark of disbelief and admiration. He mounted his own horse and followed. They rode out together into the wide-open prairie. The sun climbed higher, the grass whispering in the wind, and for the first time, Cole saw her smile freely. It wasn't polite or reserved. It was alive, real, unguarded. "You ride well," he admitted. "My father raised horses on the grasslands of the north," she said. "I spent my youth training colts when the men were not looking. Your family let you do that." "They did not know," she said, grinning. "If they had, they would have locked me in the house." They spent the morning checking cattle, Mylin sharp-eyed and quick to learn. When they found a cow limping, Cole explained about a wound that needed treating. Before he could rope her, Mylin snatched the coil from his saddle. "Allow me," she said. "Now hold on." Too late. The rope sailed out. It wasn't perfect, catching the horns instead of the neck, but it held. Cole stared. "Where in the devil did you learn that?" "Practice," she said, eyes glinting. By noon, she was covered in dust, her cheeks flushed, her smile bright. Cole watched her with something between pride and awe. This wasn't the woman he'd expected. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't quiet. She was alive in a way that stirred something deep inside him. But the town didn't see her that way. A few days later, while riding back from the pasture, they passed the neighboring Hendricks ranch. Clara May Hendricks was hanging laundry, her children playing in the dust. Her eyes went wide at the sight of Mylin riding astride like a man, her braid flying. "Morning, Clara May," Cole called. "Cole," she replied stiffly, her eyes locked on Mylin with open hostility. "Mrs. Garrett, please, call me Mylin," she said warmly. "You have beautiful children, thank you," Clara May said coldly. "I'm sure you'll be blessed with your own soon enough. Then you'll have appropriate things to occupy your time." Mylin's back straightened, but her tone stayed pleasant. "How fortunate we all get to decide what is appropriate for ourselves." They rode on, leaving Clara May gaping behind. "People will talk," Cole warned. "Let them," Mylin said fiercely. "I did not come here to live in a cage, even if it is a pretty one." And she didn't. Every day she proved herself tougher than the land itself. She worked beside him, mended fences, fed cattle, cooked meals, and still somehow kept her grace. By night they argued, laughed, and loved with a fire that burned brighter than the hearth. But storms don't always come from the sky. By late June, the drought arrived. The land cracked open, the creek dried to dust, and hope thinned like smoke. Cole stood on the porch, watching the shimmering horizon. "How long since rain?" Mylin asked, handing him a tin cup of water. 6 weeks, he said. "Maybe 7." She studied him, saw the worry he tried to hide. "We will manage." But managing turned into surviving. Every day they hauled barrels from the river 5 miles away. Mylin refused to stay home, working beside him under the burning sun, sweat soaking her clothes. The other wives whispered in town, called her unnatural, unladylike, but she didn't care. When Reverend Gable's wife said loudly one morning that a woman like that will bring ruin on her husband, Cole surprised himself. "Fortunate, then," he said, his voice ringing through the general store, "that I married a woman who doesn't scare easier." Mylin smiled at him, and even in that brutal heat, it felt like a cool breeze across his heart. By August, the drought broke everything but them. The cattle thinned, the land turned to powder. One evening, Cole found My Lin sitting by the empty creek bed, tears streaking her dust-covered face. "It is too hard," she whispered. "That calf this morning," she looked at me like she knew. He sat beside her quietly. "You could go back to San Francisco," he said gently. "No one would blame you." She turned on him, eyes blazing through the tears. "Is that what you want?" "No," he said, his voice rough. "That's not what I want." "Then do not insult me by thinking I am too weak for this life," she snapped, then softer. "I chose this. I chose you." He smiled faintly. "You sure did." That night they made plans, real plans, to sell part of the herd, to dig deeper wells, to do whatever it took. When a wealthy rancher named Silas Croft rode in, offering to buy them out for cheap, My Lin stood her ground. "We will die on this land before we sell to a man like you," she told him, her voice like ice. Croft's smile turned cruel. "We'll see about that." That night, the wind began to howl, tearing across the prairie, carrying dust and despair. Cole stood at the window, watching My Lin move about the house, her jaw set, her eyes bright with defiance even as the world outside tried to bury them. And he realized something with a sudden, deep certainty. He hadn't just married a wife. He'd married the storm. The dust storm lasted 3 days. It swallowed the horizon, turning day to dusk and breath to grit. Cole and My Lin sealed the windows with wet rags, huddling inside as the wind screamed like 1,000 ghosts outside their little home. The cattle bawled miserably in the barn, and every board of the house groaned under the storm's fury. When it finally broke, the world outside lay buried beneath a new layer of ash-colored dust, and 2 more cows were dead. Cole stood over the bodies at dawn, hollow-eyed. "Maybe Croft's right," he muttered. "Maybe it's time to sell." My Lin stood beside him, her face streaked with soot, her braid undone, but her spirit unbroken. "We are not giving up," she said fiercely. "Not now, not ever." My Lin, be reasonable. "We can't fight the weather, then we fight how we respond to it," she shot back, gripping his arm. "You built this place with your hands. We will hold it with our hearts." Her fire rekindled his own. Together they dug trenches, hauled water, and patched fences. And then one night, thunder rumbled over the dry plains. My Lin stepped onto the porch, her face tilted to the wind. The air smelled of rain. "Is that?" Cole began. A single drop hit her cheek. Then another, and then the heavens opened. Rain came down in sheets, washing away the dust, soaking their clothes until they laughed and cried all at once. She threw her arms around him, rain and tears mixing on her face. "See," she gasped. "We just had to outlast it." The drought wasn't over, but something inside them had changed. They'd proven they could survive the worst together. Months later, autumn came with golden grass and cooler winds. One morning, My Lin walked into the barn where Cole was mending a bridle. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was calm. "Cole," she said. "We need to talk." He straightened instantly. "What's wrong?" "I am going to have a child." For a long moment, he just stared. Then he sat heavily on a hay bale, his throat tight. "A baby," he whispered. "Ours," she said, smiling through tears. He laughed, half choked, half in awe. Then worry crept in. "You can't keep working the way you do, My Lin. It's not safe." Her eyes flashed. "I am not made of glass. I will be careful, but I will not stop living." Cole sighed. "You've got a wild streak that could break 10 horses." She grinned. "Then it is a good thing you are a cowboy." As winter came, the news spread through Red Rock Creek. Some townsfolk whispered that motherhood might finally settle My Lin Garrett. Others said she'd learned her lesson from the drought. They didn't know her at all. My Lin worked as long as she could, mending tack, helping with light chores, always refusing to be idle. Cole worried every moment, but he admired her more with each passing day. Then one February night, the blizzard struck. Cole woke to the house shaking, wind howling like a living thing. Beside him, My Lin tensed, gripping his hand. "Just the wind," he said, but she shook her head. "Cole," she gasped. "It is time." The words hit him harder than any storm. No, it's early. Pain tightened her features. Tell that to the baby. He looked out the window. The world was white, roaring, impassable. No horse could survive that ride to town. I can't get the doctor, he said helplessly. Her eyes met his, steady despite the pain. Then you will do it. He had delivered calves and foals before, but this was my Lynn. His my Lynn. His hands trembled as he boiled water, tore sheets, did everything he could remember from a lifetime of ranch work and instinct. Hours passed. The storm screamed outside while my Lynn fought her own inside. She was fierce, unyielding, even as exhaustion dragged her down. I cannot, she whispered once, eyes glassy. Yes, you can, he said, wiping her brow. You've survived worse, my Lynn. You survived me. She gave a breathless laugh before another contraction tore through her. When it ended, she looked at him, her voice faint. If something happens, you save the baby. Don't talk like that, he said fiercely, holding her hand tight. You both come through this. You hear me? The next moments blurred. A cry, small, weak, then none at all. The baby was blue, limp in his hands. No. My Lynn moaned. No. Cole's world collapsed. He rubbed the tiny back, desperate. Come on, little one. Breathe. You're your mother's child. You don't give up. A sputter, a gasp, then a cry that filled the cabin. She's alive, Cole choked out, tears cutting through the grime on his face. My Lynn, she's alive. My Lynn laughed and sobbed all at once, clutching their daughter to her chest. She is perfect, she whispered. But Cole saw the blood, the paleness in my Lynn's face. Her hand trembled as she reached for him. Cold, she murmured. He held her, terrified. Stay with me, my Lynn. Don't you dare leave me. Her name, she whispered weakly. Jade. Her name is Jade. He nodded through tears. Jade, he said. Our Jade. By dawn, the storm had passed. Cole wrapped his wife and child in blankets and fought through the snow to town. Doc Henley met them at the door, barking orders, his steady hand saving them both. 3 days later, my Lynn woke fully, color back in her cheeks, Jade sleeping beside her. Cole sat by the bed, eyes raw from sleepless nights. She is beautiful, my Lynn whispered. She's strong, Cole said, just like her mother. The women of Red Rock Creek whispered about the birth. Some said it was a miracle, others a punishment. But for the Garretts, it was proof of something greater, love born from fire and storm. Months passed. The ranch healed. So did my Lynn. She became a mother in her own fierce way, protective, bold, and endlessly loving. When outlaws later threatened the ranch, it was my Lynn who took the rifle first, defending her home and child without hesitation. By Jade's first birthday, even the town's harshest critics had changed their tune. The wild Mrs. Garrett had become a legend, admired, respected, and a little feared. Years rolled on. Jade grew strong and curious, always chasing the horizon like her mother. My Lynn taught her to ride, to rope, and to speak her mind. Cole watched them both with a pride so deep it hurt. One evening, as the sun set over their thriving ranch, my Lynn stood on the porch with Cole and their little girl. Jade pointed to a hawk gliding across the sky. Mama, look, his freeth. My Lynn smiled. Just like you, my little gem. Just like all of us. Cole slipped an arm around her waist. You remember that letter I wrote, he said, grinning. Her dark eyes sparkled. The one asking for a quiet, obedient wife. Yeah, he said, laughing softly. The biggest, dumbest joke I ever told. No, my Lynn whispered, resting her head against him. It was the best prayer you ever had answered. As the stars rose over the prairie and the wind carried the scent of sage and rain, Cole realized she was right. He hadn't just found a wife. He'd found his match, his storm, his heart. The cowboy who wanted a quiet life had built one filled with love, laughter, and the wildest spirit the West had ever known. And when the moonlight touched their little home, it glowed like a promise that every dawn from now on would belong to them.